All right, I'm Christos Cassandras, and I'm from engineering. And you will notice that I have a disclaimer in my title that whatever you're going to be hearing from me is based on anecdotal, purely personal, informal observations, unlike most of the colleagues that I heard talks from today who have related with us very serious scholarly work. This is not scholarly work. The reason why I have personal observations because of scholarly work that I'm doing with China, but not to tell you more about that in terms of how China fits in the world. So just to position myself, my visits to China started in 1988 and have been going on almost yearly since 2008 until COVID hit. I am a chair professor at Tsinghua University, so I have a position there which keeps me connected with them. I'm an honorary professor in a couple of other universities, and then I do frequent visits and give talks in many of the other well-known universities in the STEM field, science and engineering. Also, I am leading a bilateral program that we have with Tsinghua University at BU, which provides master's degrees in systems engineering and sponsors a lot of exchange. So this is a picture of an area that is in my part of the campus, just down there, which is the Tsinghua Visiting Scholar Office and has been sponsored by a Chinese company called Lingang International, centered in Shanghai. Okay, so chronicling again my experience with Chinese academia, my first visit, as I said, was in 1988. But I should say that in 1980, to the best of my knowledge, was the first time that a Chinese student was allowed to pursue an academic program in the United States. And this actually turned out to be a PhD program at Harvard. And I happened to overlap with this particular person. And it was quite an experience. Then in 1988, when I first went to Beijing to give a lecture at the Chinese Academy, it was, as I say, a real adventure. Let's leave it at that. It was like visiting a third world country where they had no idea what PowerPoint is or projection or anything like that. Also, there was only one real hotel in Beijing. And then 10 years later, when I went back to attend a major international conference in Beijing, it was like day and night. It was just unbelievable. And by that time also, the first research paper submissions by Chinese researchers started really flourishing, and we started seeing contributions from Chinese researchers to our major journals. In 2003, I contributed to the creation of a center at Tsinghua University. And so my visits started, and I started seeing high-tech companies appear around the Tsinghua University in the so-called Haidian district. Microsoft, Google, MathWorks started appearing. It was just like an incredible transformation. By 2008, which was the Olympics, it was yet another incredible rise. And by 2015 to today, I would say, Chinese research papers in my field dominate pretty much major journals and conferences. And as far as we're concerned, at BU and elsewhere, we have seen an all-time high for Chinese university students in the US and Europe. And these are some statistics in the STEM fields about the presence of Chinese students. In terms of percentages, which have been estimated, you can see that in the STEM field, in the graduate area, 16 to 25% to this day of the graduating students are from China. And in fact, I don't think this is surprising to you. If you walk around BU, you will see a lot of, especially around engineering where I am, you will see mostly Chinese students. So in conclusion, these are my informal anecdotal observations about what's going on in Chinese university, in academia, in research in STEM. First of all, an obsession with rankings. And I mean a real obsession with rankings. Also an obsession with bibliometrics. And I mean a real obsession. Financial compensation a few years ago was coupled for professors, at least in the STEM field, to publishing accomplishments. So, this had both positive and negative effects. STEM education is highly praised in China, to the best of my experience. And there's a tremendous talent pool. I mean, Chinese students coming out of high school are much better educated than certainly the US and many other parts of the world. Spectacular funding opportunities. It's raining yuan when it comes to STEM in the top universities in China. Remember, rankings. So if you're the top rankings, you get a lot of support. There's a tendency to study extensions of known results rather than innovate. This has persisted, in my experience, for the last 20 years or so. There hasn't really been a lot of innovation in research, and that may be partly because of the financial compensation publish to publish accomplishments. So you just try to write papers, not really to innovate. Cultural differences regarding intellectual property, I think you're all familiar with that. This is really a bit of a puzzle for me because I've had a lot of interactions with my colleagues and I'm still trying to understand their perspective in terms of what happens when they come to the US abroad, as opposed to what happens when I go there and I want to find out about what's going on. And I call this reserved openness. In other words, there's an element of pride, like we have done this. The last time I was there was quantum computing. But when asked, oh, can I see some of the facilities or can I hear some of your ideas? It was, well, we're not so sure. And finally, STEM researchers seem to me to be largely apolitical. I've had, and I still have lots of students from China, colleagues from China. When we sit down to have dinner, a drink or whatever, we don't talk about politics. I mean, when we do that in the US or elsewhere, we talk about politics. We love that. In China, you don't want to do that. You get kind of like blank stares or very reserved, cautious reactions, which again has me puzzled in terms of what does that mean for China and the world. Thank you very much.